Well, it has some problems, but it's still so cool. So last year I actually bought my first anamorphic lens, which is the Greyjoy 50mm t2.9 lens with a squeeze factor of 1.8. And as most usually do, I use the lens for video. I just shot a bunch of clips with that, did a short film with it, because I just really like the cinematic look of the lens. So to get a full picture of this workflow, please check out the video that I posted before. In this one you get to see where I took the shots, how I took the shots, what kind of equipment I used. So this is kind of the second part of the series. Please watch that. So back to the actual theme now. I kind of did some video work with this lens, with the anamorphic lens, and I thought I really like the cinematic look and I also like the aspect ratio. And so I just thought, yeah, next time I'm also going to take some photos with this lens. I took all of the photos with the Panasonic Lumix S1 and S5 camera. Those are kind of nice all-rounders when you want to do video and photos. This was where the first problem actually arrived. So in video you have the internal desqueeze function. So that means if you take video, you get the desqueezed result displayed on your screen. So that means you get the right aspect ratio when you want to take video or when you review your videos on the camera. But if you go into photo mode, the desqueeze function won't work anymore. So that kind of got me into this position of currently switching between photo and video mode on the camera just to get a sense of how this image actually looks like. This was kind of a bit annoying because the photo mode has this function to trigger video, but it's not working the other way around. So when you're in video mode, you can't just take stills on the camera, but you can only start recording. So when I wanted to review the photos that I took on location, this was also kind of not working well because I only saw the squeezed versions of the photos and that wasn't really helpful for me. So I still don't really have quite a nice portable solution. It would work with an external recorder that would get the feed out of the camera, where I can always see the picture correctly desqueezed. But if I wanted to keep it kind of more easy, more portable, especially when I only want to take photos, the only solution is to kind of switch between video and photo mode to estimate how the image will look like. So Panasonic, they would be nice to add this function actually. So the results you get out of camera are those squeezed images that kind of look a bit strange with the false aspect ratio. Now I want to show you different workflows in different apps like Luminar and Lightroom and how you can work with those squeezed images. So now we're here at the workstation and I want to show you the best way how to process the anamorphic photos and how you can get around the problems that with most apps and most software, they are displayed in an incorrect way. So let's dive right into it. Short disclaimer, Florian from editing here. Photoshop had still displayed everything in German, so I'm going to just display all of the important information in English. See you! So now we're here just in the typical Windows File Explorer, and as we can see here we just face our main problem. When we see the photos, they are displayed not in a desqueezed way but squeezed. So in general it's not a problem to display the raw images, but it's a problem to kind of see them in a correct way, and I personally find it kind of hard to estimate how the picture or how the image really looks like. And also when we open it with the typical Windows image preview, it's also displayed in a squeezed way. So what are the possibilities that we have to work with those images? So if you're an Adobe user, one software that I really like is Adobe Bridge. I just use it to go through big batches of photos that I take and to rate them. But as we can see, the problem here is the images are squeezed too, and Adobe Bridge directly doesn't offer any solution to desqueeze the photos. So that's not a really good program to use. So an app that most Adobe users in that case will use is Adobe Lightroom, and in this case Lightroom Classic. So Lightroom offers a solution that's not ideal, but it is a way you can work with the images, especially when you want to edit this in a fast notion, or if you have a very large batch of photos. So what you can do is, when you're in the develop section, under the transform tab, there is this aspect slider. So by default it is set to 0, and you can change the value to plus 100 and minus 100. And in that case, what it does is it squeezes the image and it changes the aspect ratio of the image. And as you can see, if we put in a negative value, we get the right kind of desqueeze. But as we can see, when we have set it to minus 100, the desqueeze factor is not big enough for this lens in that case. So you can desqueeze the images in the right way when your anamorphic lens squeeze factor is 1.3x, but if it's larger, for example 1.5, 1.8 or 2x, you won't be able to desqueeze it in the right amount. So in my example, the Greyjoy lens with a squeeze factor of 1.8 won't be displayed in the correct way. So I'd say this can be a solution, but it's not an ideal solution. So what we can do in that case is, if we have set the aspect ratio and we have multiple images and we kind of just want to see them displayed a little bit better, we can just copy the develop settings. And in that case, if we just want to affect the transform and the aspect ratio settings, we can just check the transform settings and copy it. And in that case, we can just mark all the images that we wanna display correctly, and then go under develop settings and paste settings. And all of the photos are affected then and are displayed in a better way. So this is, on the one hand, this is an option if you're just using Lightroom, or if you only have Lightroom, then this is the way to kind of edit the photos and then just re-import them into Lightroom, and again change the aspect ratio slider so you can reach the correct aspect ratio. So I'm gonna show you that. If you have the batch of images that you really like, then you can export them. And so if we do the edit on this image and export it, we can then import it again and again change the aspect ratio. So in that case, it is now displayed in a correct way. That's a solution that you can use if you only have Lightroom, for example, but it's not the best and not the most ideal solution, but it is a way to work with that. Also, I'd say for large batches to display them, the method to just copy and paste the aspect slider is an option, but now I'm going to show you how you can combine this together with Photoshop, for example. So if you want to work with Photoshop, it's way easier. Photoshop offers a nice solution to display the image correctly. The downside is that Photoshop doesn't really offer a way to work with bigger batches of photos, but we have an easier way to display the photo in a correct way. So if we open Photoshop and want to import the photo, first we get the raw editor. This one has the same option to desqueeze the image as Lightroom has. In this case, we leave it at 0, and we just open it. And if we have our image here, we can go to image and then image size. So, and then this window pops up, and here we can change the aspect ratio of the whole image. And the easiest way is to choose the percent, and then you just have to know your squeeze factor. So in this case, the lens has a squeeze factor of 1.8. So at the width, we just have to make it 180%, for example. So if we change that, the image will be desqueezed in a correct way, and we have the correct aspect ratio. The only thing that we have to keep in mind is that now we've raised the pixel count in total, but this is the easiest way to get the image displayed in a correct way in Photoshop. Okay, perfect. So now that we know how we can desqueeze one image in Photoshop, now the question is, how can we do this if we have a whole batch of images? So In this case, we need something in Photoshop that is called actions. So we're now going to open Photoshop and open the actions window here. So what actions do, they are actually just small scripts that perform some actions that we predetermined. So in that case, we're going to open one of the images again. Doesn't really matter which one, just open one and open it here. And now we have those actions here. And I already made a new folder, so that's the important thing. We create a new folder and let's call it ANAMORPHIC. And in this case I call it ANAMORPHIC 2. And then we're going to create a new action here, and in this case we call it Desqueeze 1.8, so that we know that we need it when we want to desqueeze a 1.8 squeeze factor. And then we can start to record, and while we're recording, while we have that active, the software just memorizes all the actions that we do and can perform them. And what we now have to do is what we did again. We go to image and then image size, and in that case change it to 180% with the width, keep the height as it was, press OK, and then we can stop it. So in this case we have desqueezed the image again, and now we have this desqueeze action. And what we now need is the image processor. So under scripts, image processor, this opens up the window which just functions as a processor which just batch processes a lot of images. And what we can do here is we choose our source folder. So in this case, this is the folder. And we are also going to choose the folder where we're going to save the images. In that case, we just choose the Desqueeze folder here, and then we can choose what type of image the exported images are going to be. In this case I choose JPEG. Here you can decide if you want to have those photos just as a preview. So for example, if you have them as JPEG photos, you can just look through them and decide which ones you like most, and then edit them either in Photoshop or in Lightroom, and then desqueeze them again in the end. Or what you can also do is you can create TIFF images which are actually uncompressed, but you lose some of the raw functionalities. So I just prefer creating JPEGs. And then the most important part is here, you can choose an action. So we just created the anamorphic desqueeze here. So 1 or 2 is the same. I created the one first, and then we can just start the whole script. And what it's actually doing, it's now opening all of those photos and creating the desqueezed ones here. So if we take a look at the desqueezed folder here, we're now creating the photos, and this works quite well. So they're a bit dark. This has to do with the log profile in which I shot the photos. They are not converted in a correct way in this editor, but that's not really important in that case here. So the important thing is that we now have our photos here desqueezed. So this is kind of the most efficient way how you can do this in Photoshop, and also combine this maybe with the Lightroom editing workflow, or if you just want to use Photoshop, and then you can choose the images that you want and edit them separately. Yeah, one thing that you have to keep in mind, if you turn your cameras 90 degrees, the squeeze factor changes because now the image is desqueezed in the height and not in the width. So this script won't work on photos that you took vertically. So that's important to know. So if you want to desqueeze them too, we have to write a separate script in that case. But all the horizontal photos are now displayed in a correct way here. So another photo editing software that I also really like and that's kind of popular is Luminar. So here we're in Luminar Neo, and this is the software where the desqueeze actually works kind of really easily. So I'm gonna show you how you can do it there. Here we have our catalog, and now we go to an image that's not edited. Here we have to go to the Edit tab, and we have our image squeezed here. So there are now two steps that you have to perform to display it properly. The first one is the under layer properties. Here we have the option to kind of shrink the image, resize it, but we can also change the aspect ratio by just dragging it down here. Now, it's important to know that you don't have information about how you're desqueezing it or how much, so you kind of have to do it a little bit by eye. I know that half of the image would be a 2 times squeeze factor, so it's not complete 2 times squeeze factor, so it's a little bit more, and yeah, this looks kind of good. So this is the first part. Now we have the image displayed properly, but we have this transparent area up here. Now we have to go to the crop settings. Here it's important to choose free, so we can freely crop the image and also change the aspect ratio. And here we just drag it down, and this is everything that you have to do. So now we have the image displayed properly in a desqueezed way. And now it's kind of the same procedure as in Lightroom. We can just go to catalog and right click on the image, and there we can copy the adjustment and then just go to another image that we haven't desqueezed yet. Let me see if there's another one. I think I already have desqueezed. Oh yeah, here's the one. And with right click adjustment and paste adjustment, we can just paste the edits. One thing that's important, we still have this transparent area on the ones where we pasted the adjustment, but we have the possibilities to just look through the images, look through them, see which ones we like, and then just start editing those. That's kind of nice. We don't have to separately export something and maybe lose the possibilities of raw images. We just have to go to crop again, free, and drag it down. So, correct way, and then we have displayed it in the right way. So, in my opinion, Luminar is actually one of the best options if you want to work with anamorphic images. So this is kind of a nice and easy workflow to desqueeze them. Yeah, this is also my favorite way to do it, and now I'm gonna show you another different software in which you can work pretty easily with anamorphic images, but I think it's not for everyone. Now the last software, I think it's not for everyone because it's actually a video editing software, is Davinci Resolve. But the cool thing about it is that you have a free version of it, and you have a lot of possibilities when it comes to color grading, and there's a native way to really display anamorphic footage. So this also works for photos. One thing that's important, you can't just import the raw photos. You have to export them in a DNG format, or also TIFF also works quite well. So here you have the imported photos, and now we just have to right click on the photos and go to clip attributes, And here we have the pixel aspect ratio. So standard, it's square, so it means that the width and the height of a pixel is equal to each other. But here we have a lot of settings that we can choose, and in my case it's the 1.8 squeeze factor. We just choose it and click on OK. And now if we look at the image, it's displayed in a correct way. We can import it here on our timeline and then go to the color tab. And here we have all of the options that we need to work with the image. You can see that Davinci kind of is a very good solution too to work with anamorphic images, and you also have the free version. So that's it for the video. Thank you so much for watching. If you're interested in how you can do a photo processing workflow in Davinci Resolve, please let me know, then I'll do a video about this one. And also tell me in the comments, let me know what kind of experiences you have with anamorphic photography and with the whole workflow. If you have any tips for me, something new, something that I didn't mention, please let me know, and check out the video before. Please subscribe, and there will also be a third video where I'll show how I actually edited the photos in Luminar. So please subscribe, check out the other videos, and see you next time. Bye!